Hey guys, we have a press conference, and it's not just Coach Tomlin, it is also GM Omar Khan, and they are going to be doing a little pre draft press conference because the draft is in just a couple days. Like, it's Tuesday, the 22nd, as I'm recording this, so you guys are going to either see this late Tuesday night or Wednesday. And if you're seeing it Wednesday for you guys, the draft is tomorrow. So, NFL draft, let's do this.
Guys, good to see everyone. Good? Perfect. Hey, I'll just touch base on a couple things before we take any questions. First, I know you guys are going to ask about the quarterback position, and I'll just tell you guys same thing. We discussed in Palm Beach a couple weeks ago. We go to camp with 4 quarterbacks. Right now, we have 2 on the
Right?
roster, and
Simple
all
math.
options are on the table. And how we acquire those last 2, I assure you, we'll have 4 when we get to Latrobe. Excited about this week. There's a lot of good players that can help us. We have 6 picks. I don't know how realistic it is that we move up, but you never know. I think staying put or moving back is probably a bigger option for us. But excited. There's good players that can help us, and really excited. A lot of work has gone into this, and I think we're probably like 95% of the way there. It's still going through scenarios, just like everyone at home is doing our mocks, trying to figure out what the other 20 teams ahead of us are trying to do. But feel good about it and excited, Coach.
For me, as we kind of bring our preparation to a close, I'm just really appreciative of the work that our scouting department, under the leadership of Omar and Andy Weidel, the work that they do over the course of a 12-month calendar. We as coaches kind of get on the moving train, if you will, and are highly involved in, information gathering and talent evaluation through the winter and spring. But man, we got a really good foundation in terms of our knowledge of this group. There's some challenges in today's information gathering, the number of transfers and so forth. Getting background information is a little bit more challenging in today's climate, and medical information as kids move around. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the quality work, particularly the foundational work that our scouting department does over a 12-month calendar in teeing all of this up for us.
The Aaron Rodgers situation have any impact on your strategy or approach in the draft?
It does not.
Mike, you mentioned it's getting challenging. College football's changing. These guys are older. They're coming to you. Some of them are millionaires. How complex and challenging is it versus 10 years ago?
I don't know that the variables that you mentioned are negative ones or ones that make it more challenging, to be quite honest with you. With age comes maturity, usually not only life maturity, but football maturity. And you feel that from some of these COVID young people, their development of skill relative to their position and their floor, if you will.
5-year
is at a
guys,
pretty
6-year
high level.
guys.
And then the financial component, I just think that, and I've seen that over the course of the last several years, if nothing else, the young people come in more financially educated. Some of the lessons that we used to have to teach them in their rookie year, they've already learned, or some of the issues that come with money, the management of money, et cetera, they've been dealing with now for a number of years. And so I don't know that those particular variables that you mentioned make the process more challenging.
A lot of guys that transfer, it seems like it's hard to find a guy in the class who's been with one school the whole time. How do you change the way you evaluate with so many guys having that background?
Thankfully, and that's what I mean when I was talking about, I'm really appreciative of our scouting department. Man, we have regional scouts, man, that have long-standing relationships with universities, and we just got to turn the stones over. Oftentimes, we got to, do research at multiple places on one individual. But that's not a challenge that's unique to us. I think that's a challenge that all of us globally face, and so from that standpoint is fair.
Do you think it's a good quarterback class, and do you think there's depth in that group?
I do. I think it's a good quarterback. I really do. Yeah.
You said that Aaron Rodgers doesn't affect your draft strategy, but does the outcome of the draft and who you may acquire affect your pursuit of Aaron Rodgers or another outside quarterback?
I think what you do in the draft oftentimes affects maybe some talent acquisition that happens after. We'll see how the acquisition goes this weekend.
Bonus means you called training camp a line of demarcation with Aaron Rodgers. Does that mean you're willing to let it play out until that point, possibly reaching training?
To be quite honest with you, I don't know that I meant that specifically for him or the circumstance. I'm just saying in general, when you report to training camp, man, it's a line of demarcation for development of a group individually and collectively.
Decision continues. Would you be comfortable with him missing OTAs and then coming to your team?
I hadn't pondered those things, to be quite honest with you.
Relates to what you might do at wide receiver and also any interest or quest you might have to try to get back into the second round. Does George's contract situation play into either of those situations or scenarios for the club?
No, I mean, we're glad we have George and DK here. I think they're going to be exciting for everyone to watch. Excited to have DK here, but no. If I am answering your question, but
Do you deem it to be an important thing for the club to get back in the second round, or at least acquire one more pick perhaps before the third day?
We'll see how things shake out. I'll say this, we gave up a second for DK, and I'm so excited that we did that. It's having him here is great, and obviously when you get to the draft, you get excited about a lot of players, and you wish I had 50 picks right now. 'Cause there's a lot of good players out there, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Omar, do you have, if you don't get the quarterback on the first day, do you have a good idea of what might be available to you in the third round that you think you can get a decent player there?
I think we're going to get without going into specifics of the position, I think we're going to get a good player third round, and all the rounds. We went through our scenarios this morning, Andy and I and Dan Colbert and the group, and there's some really good players out there, and I don't think we're saying, hey, we're taking this position in this round or that round, and we'll just let it come to us.
Look ahead to the 2026 class when you're thinking about positional value at a certain place to think there might be guys that next year when you're looking to fill a spot?
We're primarily focused on this year, but obviously, you're going to look into the future and see what's coming, and you don't, not only in the draft, but really our roster and free agency and what the league's going to look like next year and the year after. So you always take that into account, but I think right now we're focused on this group.
Obviously, pre-draft visits aren't everything, but you guys did meet with 9 running backs and 8 defensive tackles. Can you kind of expand on what you learned about those positions and players you met with and throughout this entire process?
Yeah, I think that's a credit to how deep maybe those positions are. And for us, it's important, get to know those guys as much as possible and really sort out, how we would stack those guys and take those guys. But I think that's a reflection of how deep those positions are.
How does the depth of those positions impact the urgency to try to get one of those positions earlier in the draft, would you say, versus other positions that aren't as deep?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word urgency, but, it's just, it gives you options, knowing that there's good players, at those positions. There's options at different points in the draft where you can acquire those guys.
Mike, this one's for you. You picked up Kenneth Gainwell. You've got a really good running back class, it looks like, in the draft coming ahead here. What's your outlook on Jalen entering this season? Obviously, he's carried a lot for you here. Is he an RB1 type? Can he handle the load?
I certainly feel comfortable with his ability to do so. He got hampered by injury some in 2024. He appears to be ready to answer that. I know he's really excited about his opportunity. I don't think myself or anyone within the organization question his talents in regards to managing, the ability to manage potentially that role.
Coach, you've been with Omar a couple of years in terms of the GM head coach process. Any differences between Kevin's personality in terms of what you do? It could be you guys, different things you guys do eating-wise or when you're on the road. Is there anything to add?
They both like to eat while traveling. Those would be similarities. No, it's been fun, man. We're process lovers, and it's really no shortcut to the pursuit of greatness. We spend a lot of time together. I don't spend a lot of time, to be quite honest with you, comparing and contrasting his mode of operation relative to Kevin's, because our relationship is not a new one. Oftentimes while Kevin and I were doing what it is that we were doing, he's been a part of that, and he's been here longer than myself. And so I probably hadn't spent a lot of time pondering it the way that you would do if a relationship was new. it's really kind of an extension or more of the same for us. Titles and roles change, but we're not a group that hides behind titles or desks. We're more of a get the job done collective.
Omar, is there a quarterback in this year's draft class that you guys feel could be the franchise quarterback of this team's future?
I'll just say it's a good group without going into specifics, and you don't know how things are going to shake out on draft day, but I'll just say it's a talented group.
Omar, you still rank the top 21 players. Is that the way you do it? That you might have a shot at? Is that, you don't do
For
mocks.
us.
You don't do mocks anymore, correct?
We don't. Well, we go through different scenarios and hypotheticals, just like everyone else at home does, and I mean, I'm sure you guys do too. We go through it, and we'll identify 20. We always identify 21 guys that we would be comfortable taking.
Right. So those 21, are they necessarily the top 21, maybe in the draft, or the top 21 that you feel that they would fit for you? Or you
I'd say it's the top 21, maybe that fit the Steelers, the 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mike, you guys hosted a couple quarterbacks for top 30 visits. I'm curious with Shedeur Sanders, what was your relationship previously with the Sanders family, and what did you learn about Shedeur through meeting with him?
You know, I've obviously known his father for a long time. My first time meeting him, and to be quite honest with you, we didn't talk a whole lot about my relationship with his father. It was a normal pre-draft visit to spend time with a young man, to talk ball, to get to know him as an individual, to get to see how he processes and sees the game and how he articulates his football experience. From that standpoint, it was a very normal visit and a very productive one.
Did anything stand out in that meeting about him that maybe you didn't see coming or didn't know?
I think the things that stood out were evident in his video. There's a toughness there that doesn't get talked about enough. There's a competitive spirit there that doesn't get talked about enough. I know he's very talented and has made a lot of plays for his university and his team, but the intangible qualities displayed on tape were impressive to me.
Obviously, dealt with a number of guys who are sons of former NFL greats, but I don't think you've ever had one who was his coach while he was in college. What's that dynamic like for you?
You know, I haven't explored it. It's something, obviously, that he's going to have to deal with in terms of moving on beyond being coached by his father. But, professional football is just that, it's professional football. I don't imagine it'll be a challenge for him. There are a lot more significant, tangible challenges.
There's meetings with quarterbacks. I know you want to get to know every player at every position. But because of the mental side of being in that position, is it different, or do you approach it differently? Do you talk different things?
Certainly, each positional meeting, football or schematic meeting, is different based on the position. And so quarterback has his own structure, if you will. They're oftentimes defined by situational football, and so we look at a lot of their situational football, their ability to manage possession downs, red zone, 2-minute. I think if you really want to get to know someone, as opposed to talking about what it is that you do, you watch their tape and talk about what it is they've done. I think that's a platform for a more productive day than simply instructing them about how we do business in Pittsburgh. And so that's just a little window in terms of our mindset, in terms of how we interact with all the quarterbacks. It's about their tape. It's about their experiences because it aids us in our ability to get to know them as players and as people.
You both wouldn't mind answering this, but Omar, I'll start with you since you brought it up in your opening comments about the prospect of potentially trading back. You guys haven't done that in a while. What has it been? I'm sure you've had calls every year, but why has it always been that you decided to not do that? And when it comes to the valuation of why you might, what do you think would talk you into doing it?
Talking about the first round?
Yeah.
I think the key, the way I look at it is you never really want to trade away from a really good player that can help you and the right guy for us. We've identified, by the time we get to Thursday, we'll have identified certain guys that we will not trade away from. And it's just sort of how it's worked out. A couple of years ago, we traded up to get Broderick. He was the guy we wanted, and we're open to it. So.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. We're always open, but because we do our due diligence, oftentimes there's somebody available that we're really excited about, and so I think it remains the same this year. We're open to moving up. We're open to moving back. We've done our mocks. as Jerry asked about, beyond 21 for such scenarios. But particularly in recent years, if my memory serves me correct, there's just always been people that we're really excited about when we're on the clock. And it's easy to get excited about prospects when you've done the work. I imagine I'll be in the same state this year.
Mike, given that the organization's priority or preference, I guess, going into the offseason was to re-sign either Justin or Russ, do you feel comfortable in the amount of homework you've been able to do on this quarterback class as compared to like 2022 or previous years when you were considering a quarterback?
I haven't pondered relative preparation, but I'm really comfortable with the amount of research we've done on this class and our preparedness in that area.
How many guys, as Mike was saying, are you excited about? How many guys would you not trade away from?
That's a good question.
That's a good one.
That's a good question. You'd have to give me a few minutes. For
Several.
That one. So yeah, there's several guys there that we like.
Yeah, so it's a nice group at a variety of positions. We still got more work to do in terms of, identifying that select group as you outlined, but
Work's never
this
done.
is a nice class.
Mike, what are you looking for or need from a defensive lineman when it comes to you?
This is a deep group in that area, and they come in many different shapes and sizes, and I just think that's a component of it. Some guys are power players who happen to be athletic. If you're talking about elite interior defensive linemen, some guys are oversized athletes, and it's the same in Sunday ball. Some guys are power players who happen to be athletic. Some guys are oversized athletes, and oftentimes that means that they get the job done in a different way, but the job gets done. And it's our job as organizations, and particularly as coaches, to utilize their talents. And so we cast a big net. We appreciate different modes of operations, if you will. And whoever we do business with, we're going to work to highlight their skills and how they play and how they produce plays.
Of the positions you guys are targeting, does that allow you maybe more of an opportunity to move back?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, it just gives you options.
Omar, has that process started yet? Or is that something you do?
What's that?
The talks of.
Already started. Amongst our group of GMs, let's say, we talk all the time, and we kind of get an idea of, I'm sure we're not all being 100% truthful to each other on what we're planning to do and who we're going after. But those conversations have happened, and have a feel for some teams that maybe want to move up, move back, and and we'll see. A lot of this, just doesn't happen until the draft started and you know what's happening. And
but
like I
deadlines
said earlier,
make deals.
Sure applies to every team out there. There's players teams won't trade away from, and things change. So,
Omar and Mike, you guys looked at several different defensive tackles and pre-draft visitors. Does the different styles that these guys have and how they might fit with what you currently have on the defensive line impact you guys' plan, or do you guys look to just get the guy that you think is the best defensive tackle, period, and say like that's the priority, or are there styles that you're looking to find in this class?
Yeah, from my standpoint, you want to get as many good players as you can, regardless of the position, and obviously that matters. I'll let Coach answer that, some of the rest of it, but obviously, what they do matters, but just get as many good players as you can.
I think, and this probably goes for any discussion about any position group, the higher you're picking in the draft, the less you're concerned about schematic fits, because their pedigree should supersede schematic fits, and the more marginal the pedigree, the more you better identify the schematic fit. And so later in the draft, that's probably more significant discussions regarding schematic fits than at the top end of the draft. Those animals at the top end of the draft, I'd imagine, fit in any system of football, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams.
What's harder to find these days, Mike? Is it harder to find the nose that can give you a little something in pass rush, or is it harder to find the end that's really solid in the run game?
I think the nose is a disappearing animal the way that the fullback is a disappearing animal in our game.
It is.
For both of you, what surprised you the most about this year's draft class as you guys have kind of gone through the process here?
That's a good question.
I think just the general awareness of the draft pool, and like we were discussing earlier, is really a couple specific reasons. This is a COVID group, and so they're older in a lot of ways, and I think with age comes maturity and experience. And they've been managing money because of the NIL climate. And so, you know, maturity comes with that as well. And so their general awareness about life and about the process has been impressive. I don't know that I would describe it as surprising because I have kids in that age group.
For either of you, but maybe especially Mike, because you're on the field competing, 20 times a year. Is there adrenaline? Is there, like, the way you kind of talk about moving back and forth, is that night almost like a game where you're trying to win and trying to get your guy or trying to outsmart other teams and things?
I think it's already started when I wake up at 2 in the morning and I'm thinking about it all for the last week. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, like, you know, it's a game to be played. It's competition. It is fun, certainly. I think about it as pro days, as you guys watch us move, who I interact with, where I go. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. But that's a fun component of the competition.
You mentioned
The same could be said about who we bring in on pre-draft visits.
You guys have both mentioned the age differences in the prospects. You've got some guys that are 25 or almost 25. You've got some guys that haven't yet turned 21. Does that factor into the evaluations of those players and how you view them, stack them up?
It does, and probably to an advantage for both groups at times. Depending on what it is you're looking for, you might value maturity, and obviously, from a scouting perspective, man, we all like upside, and oftentimes that comes with youth.
You talked some about pulled up in a sedan and he snuck in the back door and Rogers when he came to visit. Is that typical for a prospect free agent to visit, or how secretive was on your side of that?
I don't search for typical. It's just not the business that we're in.
You guys put the 3 safety package in a couple of years ago. KZ's still a free agent. I know you showed some interest in some safeties. How important is that to you to be able to have somebody to go to that going forward?
And we've signed Thornhill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Appreciate you guys.
All right, so I didn't take any notes. Not like when I do Tomlin's press conferences. Basically, it's a little bit of generic stuff where they ain't gonna give away anything. We could trade up. Probably not. We don't have a lot of capital unless you feel like dipping into next year's capital. We could trade down. That I feel like is more likely. Or I feel like they could stay put and pick at 21. And it's their traditional, if there's one player they really like, they're not going to trade, and have the chance of losing that guy. Now, if you're sitting at 21, and let's say they really want to take a defensive lineman, and it's Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, and Derek Harmon are all there. And let me think. Say Detroit at 28 or Kansas City at 31. They may not want to trade back that far. But you could say, let's say maybe Houston at 25. Maybe you're willing to trade back with them. Or Green Bay at 23. You could be willing to trade back with them, because if you're okay with any of those 3, if you trade back with Green Bay, you're getting one of them, minimum. Even if Green Bay goes D-line and Chargers go D-line. But if you trade back 4 spots, what are the odds that all 3 are going to be gone by the time you pick? So there's just that. I mean, they're not going to give anything away. This is peak, not really tell you anything, kind of lie time. Because this is leading right up to the draft. That's where we are right now. So if they don't want to tell you anything, they don't have to tell you anything. And it would be beneficial to them to not tell you anything. Where, hey, there's a lot of good players. We think it's a really good draft. We think we're going to get a lot of good guys and all the rounds and yada, 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 yada. Just that's where we're at right now at this time of year. I don't expect anything less from Tomlin or Khan. And I wouldn't expect anything less from the coach or GM of any of the other teams, except maybe Dallas, because the GM's the owner and he can run his mouth. So, most teams aren't going to give away anything. It's just the smart thing to do to try to make sure that no one jumps in front of you. Because what if they said, yeah, we're going to take Shedeur Sanders if he's there? Well, 20 comes. Shedeur Sanders is there. Denver's clearly not going to take him. Oh, who's this? Bring, bring. Hello. Hey, this is the Browns. We want to trade up with you, Denver. Okay. And all of a sudden the Browns jump you, and now instead of having Shedeur Sanders, you have to play Shedeur twice a year. It's just, it benefits you to stay quiet and say as little as possible that would lead other teams towards what you want to do, what your true intentions are. So, that's it. I mean, what else are you going to do? Give away all your secrets? So, if you guys did enjoy this, please do me a favor, hit the like button, and if you're new, turn notifications on and hit the subscribe button. That's backwards, but still. You're going to subscribe, turn notifications on, because you can't turn notifications on if you're not subscribed. And draft is coming. It is. So, I will see all you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.